Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Encouraging Words. If you're hearing this on the day that it's released, then I can say to you, Happy New Year. Our encouraging words will come from Psalm 127, verses 3 through 5. Psalm 127 is a beautiful psalm about the right way to build a godly home. Verse 1 says that if the Lord is not building the house, they labor in vain who build it. That's a powerful statement. If the Lord is not building your house, then as you labor to build your house, which you're doing that, but as you labor without the Lord, it is vanity because we don't have God's counsel and His wisdom. It's not something we depend on as we develop our own homes, and God says that it's empty. The encouraging words that I have selected in verses 3 through 5 deal specifically with the children in a godly home and how precious they are to God and to the makeup of that home. Psalm 127 and verse 3, Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but shall speak with their enemies in the gate. Psalm 127 tells us that children are a heritage from the Lord. They are literally a gift from God. And when you're reading the Bible and a passage starts with, Behold, God is saying to us, consider this. Think about this. Children are a gift from God. When my wife and I were having our first son and we were attending services down in San Antonio, there was an elderly woman who was the wife of an elder at Woodlawn Hills Church of Christ, and her name was Masano Porterfield. Masano gave us a doily that had Psalm 127, verses 3 through 5, stitched into the doily. And so looking at that passage and knowing that I had a baby boy on the way meant so much to me, that she knew that verse was in the Bible, and she thought enough about us to give us that and to give us something really good and wholesome to think about as we prepared our lives for who was coming. It's interesting, too, to watch and see how my life has changed having children. That both of my boys, I cherish them so deeply and so dearly. And I think they know that inherently, but I also know that I don't tell them that very often. I can't, as a father, I feel myself, I can't be stuck in all the gushy stuff about love and you mean everything and I think about you all the time. Those things are true, but I'm trying to raise my boys. And so I've got to be firm. I've got to give instruction. I've got to correct them. You know, it's that dad look of either approval or disapproval that says so many things to a young child. But I know that my boys have helped frame my family and how the world sees us. Many people that I talk to start the conversation with, I saw John do this, or I heard Corey say this. And so I realized that my family, as the picture is painted for the world and who we are, much of that comes directly from our kids. The Bible says that children are a heritage or a gift from God, and there are so many Bible verses that show us that truth. It's almost as if Psalm 127 is just saying, here's the way it works. But if you go back and you think about some of the people in the Bible, Hannah, for example, 1 Samuel chapter 1 and 2, she surely knew that children were a heritage from the Lord. She was so thankful for her gift in Samuel that she gave him back to God for the rest of his life. Abraham and Sarah knows what it means when God says children are a heritage that come from him. Leah and Rachel, the wives of Jacob, they longed to have children and that their wombs would be opened for the benefit and the blessing of their husband. We're told about Leah and Rachel. It says, when the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, He opened her womb, but Rachel was barren, and so the Lord opened her womb. Israel's faithful obedience was promised to be rewarded by God as long as they remained faithful. And that reward is in Deuteronomy 7:13. He will love you and bless you and multiply you. He will bless the fruit of your womb and the fruit of your land. Our children are so very important, certainly to us, to the home, but also to the future of this world. Proverbs 10 and verse 1 says, a wise son makes a glad father, but a foolish son is a grief to his mother. Proverbs 23:25, let your father and your mother be glad, and let her who bore you rejoice. We have a responsibility to our parents. Children are a gift from God. The passage that we're reading today tells us that like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. There's strength, and there is a blessing in having many children. That's what that passage tells us. They are like arrows in the hand of a mighty warrior. That's a beautiful picture of what children are and how they're seen in the home for the father. They are arrows in the hand of a mighty warrior. That's a really, really cool picture. Because any of us who have tried archery at all, maybe some of you are really good at archery, you know there's a lot of discipline required in the archer. If the archer is going to be good at archery, they must first be disciplined in the sport. How else can they fire an arrow straight? It's a difficult and a challenging sport, and there are many things to consider when you are getting into archery. Number one, you better be looking at your arrow, and that's our children, right? You better be looking at your arrow. Is it straight? Is it polished? Is it sharp? Will it fly as it should, and will it stick to the target that we intend for it to hit? I want my boys to be able to hit the target, and I want them to stick. I don't want them to fall down to the ground after bouncing off of the target. What about the bow? The bow is what creates that pressure and that tension so that the arrow will be released and fired correctly. Your bow is very important. The tools you use to launch your arrows are very important to the growth and the development of our children. If I'm in archery and I'm ready to fire that arrow, I'm thinking about the distance between me and the target. How far is it? How high do I have to aim up in order for that arrow to angle down and hit the target when it gets there? There are factors that are going to move my arrow, like gravity. Gravity's constantly pulling on our arrows and pulling them down. We want to fire with strength and be determined to hit that straight line directly at the target, and not just the target. We want dead-on bullseye. There's wind. And for our children, there's the wind of immorality, of sinfulness, the pressures of life that redirect and change the direction of our arrows. And as we train them and raise them up, we realize that the tension is the greatest when they're close to moving out of the house. Not only are we raising and training an arrow, but now our arrow is dating another arrow, somebody else's arrow. And that's going to have an impact on my arrow in the direction that I intend to fire it. There's a natural process in this growing up and moving away, leaving and cleaving that we can't fight and we shouldn't deny it. The tension gets greater the older they get as they are in the home. People always want to talk about the terrible twos. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm more concerned with the terrible 18s and 19s. You have parents talking to their children, trying to get them to do what's right, constantly on top of them saying, do this, do this, do this. Did you do it? I told you to do it. Have you brushed your teeth? Oh, you're not leaving the house with that on. Comb your hair and look presentable. We are going out in public. Pull your pants up. Do not talk with your mouth full. No, you can't have the car keys. Ah! Sometimes we just want to release that arrow out into the woods and say, I give up, I quit. But we can't. We have got to stay locked into that target. Our children are precious. They're going out into the world, and God knows more than anyone else that this world needs faithful children. The goal in front of us and the target in front of us is the high calling of Jesus Christ. There is no greater target to aim toward, and my children know that. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed. Is your quiver full? We have to realize the Bible didn't give us a number. Happy is the man who has 4 kids. Happy is the man who has 7 kids. Doesn't tell us. Happy is the man whose quiver is full. That tells me that we have to decide that. Some do great with 10 kids. Some would absolutely lose their minds with 4. So when is your quiver full? It's up to the individual. Children are a heritage from God. I want to finish this encouraging words by just reading a few prayers that I found, prayers from children that had been written down either by parents or those who asked children to write down something that they had prayed about. So let me give you a few. This one's from Michelle. Michelle says, "Dear God, thank you for my new baby brother. But what I prayed for was a puppy." Bobby says, "Dear God, are you actually invisible or is that just a trick?" Stephen asked this of the Lord, "Dear God, I want to be just like my daddy when I grow up, but without so much hair all over." John says this, "Dear God, maybe Cain and Abel would not kill each other so much if they each had their own rooms. It works out okay with me and my brother." Here's one from Elizabeth. "Dear God, I got a brand new pair of shoes today. I'll wear them to church on Sunday so you can see them." Charlotte prayed this, "Dear God, please take care of my daddy, my mommy, my sister, my brother, and my doggy, and me. Oh, please take care of yourself too, God. If anything happens to you, we're going to be in a big mess." and finally, a prayer from Billy. "Dear God, could you please send Mikey Johnson to another summer camp this year?" Children are a gift from God. It is certainly true. Psalm 127, verses 3 through 5. "Behold, children are a heritage from the Lord. The fruit of the womb is a reward. Like arrows in the hand of a warrior, so are the children of one's youth. Happy is the man who has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but shall speak with their enemies in the gate."